In this last video, see this as an appendix, I would like to show you an alternative approach to how you can solve the problem of constructing the profile curves correctly. And what you see here, for example, are different cross sections through my object. So for example, here, this is kind of like a plane where I have my start point of my bent surface, the midpoint, and the end point. And the same on the other side. And let's assume that in this case, for example, our product has straight edges going down here, like this. But then to the top, each face basically arcs in a little bit. Now in the previous drawing, like here, I showed you how we use construction planes and then use the bounding box to kind of like guide lines and then find intersection points inside the 3D space of our gray boundary box, which is a pretty valid point or approach. But there's also a secondary approach. And for example, with this layer, you see that seen from the top, I somewhat captured the midpoints and then also the start and end point of each arc. And you can see that, for example, this point is here. So the upper rectangle is kind of like an insert. It's scaled towards the center. So in case, for example, I would just create vertical lines, you immediately see how it is tapered. But we also have the case that our top face actually shows a bent surface. Now, our problem is, how do we calculate it? And instead of just creating our object and then step by step adding curves, like in the process I did before, I did one further step, and let me hide the top layer. There we see, for example, how I used the approach of creating another construction plane a little bit lower that pushes the corner points down. So those points where my curve would start and go through this point and go back, I simply move down at each corner. So now I can start from there to here and there, start there, go to here and there, and this way I will create a surface that is arced. And then from here I can create my arced profile and sketch up my surfaces. Let me actually go to my profile images. Like this. So you can maybe get an idea of what I was trying to create. So this upper rectangle, this one here, is, for example, kind of like defining this boundary. So you see that the edge or the midpoints are here, the curve starts there, so the same kind of like you have there. And seen from a side, this blue rectangle is on this level. Now this one here, the lower blue one, for example, is something that might, for example, rest somewhere here, because I would like to have those lines go to there, stop, and then in my quick sketch here, I decide those lines go down, but in the actual drawing, they arc in a little bit. So, for example, to create the lower part to be arced down, all I have to do on this lower face, create another rectangle like this, and then I have the reference point where this edge I have to draw down to here, this point I have to draw to there, this point I have to draw down to here, there to there, and then it will all meet or match. Okay, so let's give this a try. So let me lock those so I don't by accident draw on those. So I have, for example, already those vertical lines. Oh, whoops, wrong key. Sorry. And I'm just putting in those missing edges down there. And let's start maybe from here. Point, arc out, and point. Oops, sorry, again. Was a little bit too tipsy with the escape key. Point, click to there. And there we are. Then those points, for example, go down to there, to there, to there. This one goes down. And you see now I have those 3 points as well. So I can, for a moment, lock those and then start creating those profiles down there. Perfect. And maybe here I remove those. Okay. So now I would like to do the same now to go up to this point, to there. So I know, for example, that this line goes straight up. So I can just simply draw a line to there and a line from here to there. Actually, that's incorrect. It has to go down to there because that is the lowest corner point. Same, for example, there. So sorry for that mistake. Here I'm just adjusting those points. It's easier to see. And now I would like to have this part to be arced. So the cool thing is, let me select everything and lock it. I can start, for example, there, make a point. So there, there, and then this point for a moment I put to here. So you see what's happening. Now this looks like this face is actually flat. Kind of like this is a transition like this. But also this part should be arced. And that is where my upper rectangle comes in place, because if I zoom in, you see right here, there is a smaller rectangle. So this point, I move to there. This one goes to there. And this, for example, is now more accurately constructed, arced, and this is also arced. Keep in mind that those surfaces are both arced, so it will look this way. So this is actually correct. So let's go to the other side and do the same. I'm going to place a point and point. 1 point to the start and the end. 1 point to there. Then I have to pull out my anchors and then I move it to the back. For example, now you can much better already start seeing the dimension and how the object actually looks. And if we compare this a little bit to our first drawing, I'm very close. I used a little bit different proportions, so they're a little bit off. But you see, this is actually a pretty valid approach as well. By simply using cross sections, I construct into my cube, because again, I can see profiles from the front, but also I can see profiles that are inside my object. So for example, this is one edge of a rectangle, and this is the rectangle seen from the side, and on the top view this rectangle would be something like this. And if I put this rectangle into my cube, I kind of like have the reference points inside the 3D space, inside the cube I need. And then from there I can continue projecting further elements on it with the technique or the approach I showed you before.